Namaste. Welcome to Buddha's teaching. My name is Soti Tim. First of all, I'd like to pay respect to the Triple Gems. I'd like to pay respect to the Buddha. I'd like to pay respect to the Dhamma. And I'd like to pay respect to the Sangha. Hello again, everyone. It's nice to be with you all again today, this afternoon, this morning, or this night. Now, first of all, why do I always pay respect to the Triple Gems? I know maybe some other people, when they don't understand the meaning behind it, there could be some people who are new to the teaching. They can feel annoyed that why you do the pay respect all the time, right? So it depends on the level of understanding on where people are coming from, and that is understandable. The reason that I always pay respect to the Triple Gems because I have received benefits from the Triple Gems. The Triple Gems have given me tremendous benefits in life. So of course, I am in great debt to the Triple Gems. If it wasn't for the Triple Gems, it would be, difficult for me to see how my life could turn out, right? Just like I have mentioned in one of my books, A New Me, that without understanding the Triple Gem, that what the Buddha taught, I would have been in a lot of mess. But luckily, I encountered that, and I have received great benefits from the teaching. And just like we pay respect to our teacher in whether in school or in grade school or in college or even doctors, right? They teach us math, they teach us history and things like that. Before that, we wouldn't know anything about any math, we wouldn't know how to do algebra, or we wouldn't know any formula, any geometry, physics, and things like that. So because of them, we get to know the formula, we get to know how to add and subtract, we know how to read, and we know how to write, right? So in return, we show them the appreciation by saying thank you, right? By paying respect to them. So but with the Buddha, and that's what it means to me, at least anyway, is because I have great respect for the Buddha, because the Buddha has given, even though he's no longer here, he has given me tremendous treasure that he had shown me the way to discover the beauty of the teaching and the beauty of the truth of life. So that's why. Okay, so if you guys have not gotten to that point yet, and that's okay, all right. And once you get one step at a time, and you will start to appreciate the Triple Gems just like I do. So anyway, now the topics today that I like to talk about is noble guidance. Okay, so what is noble guidance? So it's a sort of guidance that leads us to have a noble life. Okay, so these days there can be many sources of guidance, right? The noble guidance can come in the form of books, right? Of some social media, some podcasts, just like this one, and of course through some noble friends. Right? Friends can be very, very helpful and useful. When they are noble friends, when they are noble people. Okay, and in Buddha's time, the noble friends are the most likely the Sangha, right? The monks, the Buddha disciple. Those are the noble, you can call the noble friends, and we can always, people went to see them to obtain guidance from them. So those are the noble friends. So there can be many sources, right? For us to receive noble guidance, books, podcasts, of course, and especially friends. And with noble friends, we can have what we call Dhamma talks. Okay, we don't talk and about just silly nonsense stuff. Okay, noble friends guide us how to live a good life, right? How to understand life in its true meaning. Okay, so that we can have a good life and we can have a peaceful life, right? Instead of having a chaotic life, because without, as you all know, without understanding what life truly is, people can get lost in life, and when people get lost in life, people would run into a lot of life issue. Of course, there's so many things going on in life, physically and mentally, and if we don't understand life, then life will keep giving us issue to deal with. Okay, and unfortunately that's how it goes. And unless we meet proper guidance, unless we encounter noble guidance, we would not know how to navigate our life, right? From sunrise to sunset. It can be challenging sometimes. Okay, just because here's the thing, for ordinary people, without understanding the noble truth, okay, so what do people do on a day-to-day basis? Okay, on a day-to-day basis, from the moment that people wake up until the moment people go to sleep, what do people do? Right? For ordinary people, okay, so we get up. Okay, we get up and we do all the regular habit that we do, right? And we clean, we brush, we eat, right? We go after what the different kinds of education and jobs and things like that to survive. And in the mix of that, we also pursue all kinds of material things that we think offer us the good life and the happiness in this world. Okay, so what exactly is it that for people do? People go after what we try to achieve success in life. Okay, by running after material things, by running after money, and by chasing after money, by chasing after wealth, by chasing after title, chasing after status, right? Chasing after power, okay, chasing after other sensory pleasure that we think make us happy. And so in that, it includes having relationship with others. Okay, why do people go into relationship? One thing is because we are expecting that other people will fulfill our need, will fulfill our sensory pleasure. Okay, so that's why we go into relationship. So with all of this, because this is the the world that we live in, we are living in the sensory world. Okay, so because of this, this is what people do, right? People will only think about these things. Okay, sensual pleasure, and trying the best to accumulate wealth, to accumulate popularity, also trying very hard to preserve the way they look, right? To try their best to not to age, to keep the body young. Okay, so in all of this pursuing of the what we call the dream in the sensory world, okay, oftentimes people will forego doing good deeds, even, and they will do bad deeds just to get what they want. Okay, they know that some people know that there are bad deeds that they are going to do, but greed greed blinds people and make people do evil things, do bad things. Okay, in order to achieve, in order to accomplish what they have in mind as success. So, so with that kind of ideas in mind, people would sacrifice good deeds, okay, in the name of their loved ones, okay, in the name of their families. Okay, they would do bad deeds just for the benefits of themselves and for their own family. Okay, and because they think that that is that how they gonna take care of the family, even though they hurt other people, they don't really think much. They don't really take much into consideration. Okay, as long as they can gain, as long as they can get more for their own, for themselves and for their family and their children, right? For their spouse, and that's all they're thinking, right? So they will do bad deeds. They will do killing. They will do cheating, stealing, okay, and dealing in illegal activities. Okay, doing business in drugs trafficking, human trafficking, okay, and all of that, and just for the sake of sensory pleasure, and just for the sake of gaining for the families, okay, and they're willing to do things. They're willing to close their eyes to hurt others, okay, in order to satisfy their own greed, in order to satisfy to make them the family happy and all that. And this is the kind of pursuit of happiness that a lot of people are doing, right? I'm not saying all, but a lot of people are willing to do, right? Willing to kill, cheat, steal, dealing in things that they should not do, and just to accumulate, just to gain. Okay, and there's many kinds of killing that people will do. There are many kinds of cheating that people do, and I'm not talking about cheating on their wife or their husband. In this case here, they're doing this for their family, so they cheat the business partner, they cheat the customer, right? They cheat the government. There's all kinds of cheating. Okay, as long as they can get away with it, all right. As long as they think that nobody knows, then they will cheat the system. Okay, in order to gain. Okay, so that leads to corruption. Right, corruption in places, in business, in companies, in governments, and all that. Okay, so and the same as that is similar to stealing. Steal behind people's back, stealing from the company, stealing from business and government and all that. Okay, the behind the scene things that people wouldn't know, so that they think they can get away with just for the family, and and they think that that is the deed that they're willing to do in order to gain the status or the wealth or whatever not that their greed asks them to do. Okay, so so that is one of the things that ordinary people do. And of course, during all this, within all of this bad deed, within all this action that they do in their daily life to uh, to support the family, to support the spouses, also within the family and the spouse themselves, because when ordinary people practice bad deeds, now it becomes a habit, right? It becomes an acceptance within that they think that doing bad deeds is okay, right? Doing bad deeds is okay. So and that proliferate into within the family themselves. The way that they deal with their spouse, and the way that the people deal with the children, with the parents, with the sibling. It's the same way of thinking, right? It's the same way of practicing within the mind, because the mind is working in a habitual way. Okay, when the mind thinks that it can get away with certain things, and it keeps doing the same thing. First, the mind of ordinary people think that they can cheat the system or whatnot, all right, and to support the government, to support the family. I'm sorry, or the spouse. But after a while, that mind also think that it can also cheat. It can also do things behind the back of their spouse, of their children, of their parents, in order to satisfy themselves. See, so it's it's um it's it's something that the mind does not understand, and that mind think that it is clever in doing all of those things. So of course, when this kind of thing happen, eventually it will lead into a problem. It will lead into issue within families, within with the in the relationship. Okay, with friends, with neighbors, with co-workers, because when people practice this kind of bad deeds, and eventually karma will catch up, right? Sooner or later. Okay, karma will catch up, and then they have problem. and that is a mental problem, right? So there'll be argument, there's fight, there's breakup, and there's suffering arise. Okay, so these are some of the scenario, and of course there's countless scenario of life that goes on a daily basis. Okay, everywhere, doesn't matter where people, where you live, wherever there are people, there are issue like this. Okay, and this kind of issue does not discriminate against race or religion or the color of the skin. This kind of issue is pervade the whole world, right? The problem that people have is a world problem. It's a problem of, the entire population. Okay, and this is based on of course what we call the mind, right? The ignorant mind, the mind who never encounter any noble guidance on how to live a good noble life. Okay, so the mind just keep doing what the default mind is doing. Even during the Buddha's time, when the Buddha was in the temple teaching all kinds of Dhamma, there are people who live outside, outside the temple, just by the fence of the temple, just on the outside perimeters, who lives there years and years and years, but never get to hear the Dhamma, never even body to listen to what the Buddha had to say, right? They see people going in and out, right? To see the Buddha, to search the guidance and all that. And what do? They live outside the temple and they trade. Okay, they trade. They're selling things, right? And all that, but they never, they never dawned on them that, what is it that people going in and out to seek the advice from what, it doesn't click. It didn't click for them, and so they continue their life, right? Do whatever trade that they do outside, and they would go through life with all kinds of ups and down issue within the families. So that's how it is. That's it's a it's a the people who keep living like that forever and ever, and even though there's a great teaching nearby, they don't pay attention because they are too busy with their own life, right? In a way, right? Just by going after the material things to fulfill the needs of the stomach, to fulfill the needs of the sense, the other sensory pleasure, and through that, whatever headache, heartache, or fight or argument or whatnot, whatever issue they have, they just accept it, and they say that's how life is. Okay, that how life is to them. To ordinary people would live with suffering and accepting that suffering is a normal life. Okay, and when people accept that suffering is normal, okay, they would not seek a way out. Okay, because they already accept suffering as normal, fighting as normal, anger as normal, okay, anxiety as normal, okay, depression as normal. So when people accept that, so that which means that they identify themselves with all of those emotion, all right? They accept themselves as those issue that the mind has. Okay, and because that is the default mind, they're living with the default mind. Ordinary people live with the default mind. Okay, the default mind is ignorant mind, and when people accept ignorant mind as who they are, they would not, go about to find out, a solution for it, because they already identify themselves with this ignorant mind. Okay, so with that, the cycle of birth and death continues forever and ever, because this is how they understand it, and this is what they think normal is. Okay, just living day in day out, try to make money, try to be healthy, try to be rich, try to be famous, try to be powerful, and gather more and more and more, and that's all they think. And that is the mind of ordinary people, right? So it doesn't matter whether the person is in a high powerful position. He or she still lives in the world of ignorant mind, because that's all he or she knows about life. Okay, without any noble guidance, that's all they have, they know. And because of that, you can see that what the world is like right now and has been. Okay, the world always go through war. There's no such a century, or there's no such decades in the world that has no war, that has no fight, right? There's always flare-ups everywhere, right? Around the world, it's always fight. There's no history of any country that went on until now, that's gone on until now, that had no war, right? There's no such a thing. Why? It is because of the default ordinary mind. It is because ordinary mind or ordinary people live in a default or ignorant mind without any noble guidance. Okay, so noble guidance is so important, is so precious to anyone who come across it, right? As you can imagine, not everyone would come across Buddha's teaching. Okay, most of the people never heard of Buddha's teaching, and people who know a little bit here and there, they don't really pay attention. Okay, and there's only a few, very small percentage of people who can benefit from this, right? So that is the reason. That is one of the things why when the Buddha reached enlightenment, the Buddha saw that, oh wow, the world is dark. Okay, it's total darkness. Okay, the whole world here, the sensory world, is living the way without understanding what living is, without understanding what life truly is. So because of that, the world lived in the dark, right? The whole world. And the Buddha was like a light that just light up inside the vastness of dark, right? It's like a candlelight inside a dark room, and all of a sudden, just like poof, there's a candlelight that there's a light, and the light will shine, and that would be the Buddha. Okay, and that is the noble person, and that give out noble guidance, right? So it is so fortunate for us, right, to come across the light, okay, and it is very rare, right? It is very fortunate for all of us to encounter the teaching, because the teaching can show us the ultimate truth of life, right? And the teaching can liberate us from all this bondage to the sensory world. Okay, while we are living here, yes, we live here in the sensory world. So but we also understand, okay, what this sensory world is through Buddha's teaching. Okay, and we don't get lost, in the sensory world, because we know that the sensory world is a form of illusion, right? It's not the ultimate truth. Okay, but this is something that I know some of you have gotten to understand. Okay, what is the conventional truth of the sensory world, and what is the ultimate truth of life, or the ultimate truth of who we are, right? So as a a noble guidance again comes in the form of books, right, of podcasts, and of course a noble friends. And so a noble person. So what is a noble person? So the noble person would not do what an ordinary people would do. So a noble person is somebody who would not kill, would not cheat or steal, okay, just to benefit themselves or to benefit their own family, all right, including their own family. Even though, they say, if I do this, I can get money and stuff for myself, for my family. But a noble person would not entertain such a thought, because, they say that is not the right thing to do, by, by killing, by stealing, by cheating, just to benefit myself, or to benefit my family, and hurt other people. A noble person will not do that, right? The noble person understand what is it that he or she needs to do, and what not to do, right? So a noble person practice goodwill. He always practice goodwill. Okay, he learn to cultivate, to eradicate the defilements from his or her own mind, right? And as you all know, how do we eradicate defilements, or those errors within our mind? Okay, we do that by observing, right? By understanding that the mind has wholesome and unwholesome faculties, and they arise, right? They arise within the mind, right? So the mind can, the mind with goodwill can rise, and also the mind that is not good, that has ill will, can also arise. Okay, the naughty mind can also arise. Okay, but by understanding this, right, because we have learned about the mind, how the mind works. So now we can, the noble person, or we can practice, okay, we can practice by understanding the mind and observing our own mind. That's what a noble person does. A noble person look at their own mind instead of look at others, instead of blaming others. They look at their very own mind, observe their own mind, being mindful of their own mental activities, and see what kind of mind that arise within themselves from day to day, right? From sunrise to sunset, whatever activities that a noble person does, okay, he or she is always with his or her own mind and understand what his or her own mind is doing. That is the cultivation of a noble person. A noble person is always with his or her own mind, okay, and observing and seeing, all right, seeing what the mind is doing, and by just observing and by understanding and by seeing his or her own mind, the noble person know what is wholesome that is arising and what is unwholesome that is arising. So a noble person understand, if there's wholesome arising, and that is wholesome arising, and if there's unwholesome mind arising, a noble person also know that is an unwholesome mind arising, and a noble person knows what to do. Unwholesome, not to do. Wholesome, yes, why not? Okay, and because of that, a noble person always, have goodwill, right? There's no will to hurt other people. Okay, a noble person is always helpful to the best of his or her own ability. Very helpful, okay, and very generous. He or she practice generosity toward himself or herself, and also toward others, okay, toward friends, families, co-workers, neighbors, okay, and other nationalities. That's what a noble person does. Okay, he offers peace and happiness to his surrounding. Okay, he does not give out. It's not like a person when when a person give you make you scared. Okay, so that would not be a noble person when a person scare you, right? So a noble person make you feel warm. Okay, when you come across a noble person, you feel this the vibe, the energy that the person is a nice person, warm, okay, trustworthy. Is to be with. Okay, that is a noble person. A noble person generate that kinds of vibe. Okay, that kinds of energy that make you feel comfortable to be around that person. But on the other way, an ignoble person isn't a person that when you wherever he or she goes, it generates negative energy. It because an ignoble person who's always going after things for him or herself, it gives off it gives off negative energy, and it does not, he or she does not help people, but he or she wants from you instead of helping you, and he or she would do things to harm you, in order to benefit himself or his or her own family. So you see the two opposite things between a noble person and an ignorant or ordinary person who has ill will. Okay, so these are the things that we should keep in mind, that a noble person, what a noble person would do, and what an ignoble person would do. So with those two things, and this is what we need to practice. Okay, as a Buddhist practitioner, this is what we practice. All right, we practice by better ourselves on a daily basis, every day. Okay, every day from the time we get up until the time we go to sleep, we go to bed, right? We promise ourselves to be a good person. We promise ourselves to be helpful, right? To be generous to others, not to cause harm to others, which is including ourselves and families and spouse and friends, right? So we say things, we do things mindfully. We don't just blurt out words and talk nonsense to people just for conversation's sake. Noble person don't do that. A noble person is mindful of his or her own speech, okay? Because they don't want to hurt others. They don't want to harm others, by their own words, by their own speech, or by their own action. So they cultivate themselves. Right? A noble person would always cultivate themselves, okay, to to be someone better than yesterday. Okay, they cultivate themselves to be a better person all the time. All right, because we know that this is a practice. All right, the mind is a very difficult thing to uh, to tame. So we have to keep doing it. And of course, the time that the mind is always in a habit, and when the mind has been in a default mode for so long, it takes a lot of time, right, to to make the change to the mind. But as long as we keep practice, right, and we keep at it, our mind can change a little bit at a time. All right, from being angry all the time, from being nasty all the time, to less nasty, less angry, less sad, less anxious, a little bit at a time, right? And eventually, the mind will get into a different way of thinking. Will get into a different atmosphere, a different way of going about in life, right? And when a mind changes like that, you will notice that um, your being becomes lighter in a way. Okay, your spirit becomes like easy going, more friendly going, right? With more smiling, okay, and more embracing toward others instead of just me. And now the mind is opening. It's a process, right? The mind start open more and more to embrace others. Okay, so instead of having closed mind as before, the mind change. The mind, uh, make the change. But that is something that we have to practice all the time. And this is actually is an intention within ourselves that, okay, I'm going to be a better person by making the change within, right? By making the change within. So that is the practice of becoming a better me on a daily basis, okay, toward myself, toward others around me, toward my families and friends and neighbors. Okay, so this is the cultivation of a noble person, because a noble person understands the ultimate truth, and a noble person knows that this is the right thing to do, to have to live the life, a sensory life here, while we are having this little time on this planet. Okay, before the body breaks down. During this little time that we have, this is the good practice that we do. Right? So that is the work of a noble person. And I hope you sincerely and take this to heart and practice this. Okay, because it only benefits you and your surrounding. Okay, and it does not affect. It of course, as you practice more, it will affect more and more people. Just like it's just like the candlelight in the darkness. You will get brighter, and the room will get brighter. Okay, so you can be a candle unto yourself. Okay, become a candle unto yourself, and light your way, and light the surrounding, that is families and friends, right? So that's what I like to share with you all today. Hopefully this is something that of beneficial to you. And if I said anything that offended people, sorry. Okay, I have no intention of hurting or offending anyone. All right, so until next time, I like to pay respect again to the triple gems who gave me great benefits. I like to pay respect to the Buddha. I like to pay respect to the Dhamma, and I like to pay respect to the Sangha. Namaste, everyone.